All right, stand by for a quick intro. Welcome back to another episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Canby, and this is episode 71 with the return for the third time of Colin Bryce, the Giants Live owner, World's Strongest Man tournament director, commentator, referee, and much, much more. Last time Colin was on the show, we talked about how we can improve the stone off in the last event of World's Strongest Man, but today we're also talking about the log championships, the deadlift championships, and answering your questions that you guys submitted online. So let's sit back, sit down, and tune in to Colin Bryce on today's episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. So if you're enjoying the episodes, if you're enjoying the channel recently, please consider being a member. And don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, notification bell so you know when all the videos and podcasts are coming out. So with no further ado, here is Colin Bryce. I like to have, I'm here. I like to have fun with my intros, Colin.
Mate, you're getting better and better. You're a proper pro. You're a proper pro now. I love it.
In the future,
who's in your team?
My team? I am a one-man show when it comes to editing, commentating, video filming. So I might expand one day, but right now I'm solo. But I hope to become a commentator one day. But how's your summer been, Colin?
It's been good. Yeah, I've been caught quite a bit of sun. Had a very brief holiday with the family in Turkey, which is quite cool. And then just doing up my office and still working away because we had the official Strongman Games, European Championships, the same weekend, sadly for fans, as the SMO.
Absolutely. But some great performances at the Europeans. I was glad to see Matthew McKeegan finally winning a big title for winning the European as the 105. You have another great Ukrainian and Roman. And I was glad to see Ben Glasscock stepping up and taking the podium. And then there's so many other great performances as well among the men and women.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the Opens, the big Ukrainian guys, he's the real deal. He's impressive, and he's got such a big frame. He could put on another.
He's tall, right? He's like, is he 6'8"? He's like 6'8" or something.
No, nothing like that. No. He's not ridiculous. He's like a. At the moment, he's still a bit. He's got incredibly long arms and legs. He looks like he's kind of like. But Tom is almost 6'8" actually. But he's like maybe a shrunken down Tom, to 6'6", something like that. So, but he's tall.
Okay,
I don't think he's tall. 2 meters probably, I'd say. But so I've broken my glasses. So occasionally I need to peek at that beard. What a beard! It's outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's Bobby Thompson.
I haven't shaved since.
Shame next to you do that. Hey?
I think mine's better. His is all over the place. My mind's pretty thick and Italian and full of olive oil. So,
is yours got just for men in it? That's what I want to know. It looks a bit too dark there.
Just for men? No, just for. No, I do pluck out the whites though. I do have a few whites at 35. But did you catch the Shaw Classic at all, Colin?
I mean, just in catch up, because of course we were doing our European Championships, and I mean the SMO, as it were, the SMO. I caught up on that. I've yet to catch up on exactly what happened. What is, I think now, is it termed the Shaw Classic, is now the sort of open category one, and then Strongest Man on Earth is,
and then the SMO is for the pros.
SMO. Yeah. Interesting name though. It's just missing an H, isn't it? That'd be hilarious. But anyway, it was. I mean, what I saw of what Brian put on was it looked great. I mean, it looked like a great crowd. It's a different style of contest to what we put on in a way. Although it's arena strongman, similar. But obviously, it's more of a weekend thing. His was an expo. I imagine you probably kind of took time in and out. I don't know exactly, but I'm just guessing. And it sounded like there was lots of other things going on as well, which is interesting. So well done, Brian. Bravo. It's great to have such a legend, putting his efforts into the promoting. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not that easy. But I heard he stepped up like a proper man when something went wrong. So good on Brian. I heard there was a
Yeah, it was the squad event was interesting. It was just they did it kind of on like a Smith machine track, and it looked like some heights were different than others. But I know you of course have had plenty of squad events in the years of hosting events. It's not an easy.
Horrible.
I would say squad events are not easy because of the depth. Yeah, so that's why we don't see them as much. But it is a great. They are a great feat if you can get it right.
You can take all the photos you want of people's feet and where they're going to place it and measure up the angles. But, you know, here's what Magnus Ver Magnusson did in 1996 in Mauritius. He came out and he squatted in the same shoes that he squatted in the competition, but without the 2-inch fill-in. In other words, he was almost flat-footed on the floor. Sorry, let me get this right. Which way did he do it now? Other way around, right? So he had the fill-in, and then so his depth was then high to get to whatever way it was. He had figured, Magnus is so smart, he figured that out. So you can have the same foot things, the same everything, do a protractor beforehand. But I mean, clearly, were those anywhere near 90, what we would all call 90, or you know, or parallel or whatever, you know, it's just difficult on the day. Once he's going, he's going. So you can only do what you can do to kind of, in the end, I much prefer when you measure them right down to touching something. And we had,
I like how we
need little mats that we whip out so we can whip them out at the last second. And normally when someone's a bit dodgy and arguing about their height, we'll just actually write them down for 1 mat less. Or 1 mat more rather, and that way we've got them covered, because we can often smell who's gonna be a little high. So, but it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. But for the show, can anybody stop the madman of Mitch Hooper? He looks pretty unstoppable. Maybe a fire lit under him after World's Strongest Man.
I think Mitch Hooper is just an extraordinary human being in every angle I see of him. I mean, yeah. Does anyone even want to see him get stopped? I don't know. I kind of like to see a massive run of things because guess what? He's also doing lots of shows, which is such a rarity. You know, it's that sort of win the Olympia and then just do the Olympia mentality in bodybuilding kind of crept into Worlds a wee bit, and I don't think that's a healthy. You know, if you love your sport, get out there and compete. You know what I mean? I know it gives people a chance to take you down, but it also gives the world a chance to see you, and that for me is, you know, the live experience. You know, it's not just about the athlete competing; it's about everybody seeing what the athlete can do. Ultimately, what is sport? Sport is, look at me, look how good I am. That's really what sport is, and bonding with other people, including the crowd. So, yeah. So
it's very similar to Zajuna's journey.
And he is. Do you know what? He could go on and take the deadlift record. He might even bloody do it in Las Vegas. Do you know when he did that 475? He'd only done like a 420 before that, 425. It's like a 50 kilo.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, was pretty wild. Yeah, I did.
Sorry, there's a bit of a delay, so I do apologize if I talk over you at all. Sorry.
No worries. Hey, you never have to be sorry. You are my guest. But yeah, I think it was something like 420, and then he did like a 100-pound PR going for that 475, which at the time was probably like the third best deadlift, and that's what put him on many people's radars heading into that 2022 Worlds.
Surely he's a hell of a lot stronger than that now. Surely. I mean, he's thicker. He's bigger.
I hope so, especially with the guidance of laws. And he's enormous. And I feel like every time or every contest he just shows up a little more pristine and a little more focused. But we do have some of our first kind of questions coming in. So Robo Pissatron is asking, will there be more Giants Live done in North America? So I imagine just depending on how Vegas goes, right?
Yeah. Robo Pissatron. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a given. I mean, hopefully Las Vegas will go well. Hopefully it'll be an unbelievable show. The lineup, setup of events, everything is just as juicy as it gets. You know what I mean? I think we'll see 505 pulled. We've also got Lucy there, who I saw last weekend, who I think she could do. Forget her record of like 318. She does 1 kilo up. She's looking to annihilate it. Like, we're talking like, I think 320, 330, 335. Who knows? 350. I mean, before you know it, she'll be in round one of the men's. It's terrifying what she can do.
Did Lucy wear a suit last year?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, all right. So
I can't remember for sure.
I wasn't sure. So it'll be interesting. But I absolutely have a lot of faith in Lucy that she could probably pull something big. But I will be at the, of course, Deadlift Championships. I'm of course very excited for it. I'm making a 4-day 4-night vacation, taking the wife. We're staying at the Aria, so a little bit of ways from the Orleans, and very looking forward to the whole weekend. I've of course haven't watched the Giants live from the stadium, so it'll be, of course, it would be interesting kind of seeing it from a fan's point of view. But I'm looking forward to
what was your experience at it? Well, how did you think? What was your strongest man like? Was it different to other contests you've been at, or?
Oh, absolutely. I've had similar pace shows. Sure, I've had similar pace shows, but in terms of the production, everybody getting their own individual come out music, the interviews, and just how organized everything was. That was of course a little different than others, but also just having the pace of the show and also how heavy everything was too was something a little different, something I needed to probably account for in my next training cycle. But overall, I wish I was able to kind of sit in the stands and watch as well. So I'm going to get that opportunity in Vegas. So hopefully I'll be able to learn a little more going forward.
And the important thing is you won't sit in the stands too long at a Giants live. That's for sure. You won't have a sore ass. I promise you that. Hopefully we try to turn it around in 3.5 hours. That's the goal. 4 from start to finish. Meet and greets after, and it's ideally leave people wanting more, not less. That's always the goal.
Yeah, the meet and greets were great. It's probably the most popular I felt ever. So it's of course it was great to meet all the fans. But Colin, I wanted to before we get to the Deadlift Championships, I wanted to talk about what we talked about on the last episode. We were talking about potentially improving on top of the stone off to determine who would make it to the finals out of the second and third guys. There were some really great responses, so I thought we could go through some of the responses. I have
hit me. I love this.
I'm going to still stick to the one I said on the chat. So I just got to pull it up all the clips, but I'm going to still kind of stick to the one that I mentioned, is kind of have a decathlon outside of the events that were already in the previous 5 events. Something that might be maybe 3 or 4 events where they kind of race through. But some other people kind of had some ideas on top of that too. So let's go through them. So one guy says, for Colin, what would be better? The last event should be a timed event that determines the placing on how you come out in the finals for the first event. Most likely they have athletes trying as they will give an advantage. So this, he's mentioning that they should time the last event.
So explain that to me. I was trying to take it in. I was trying to take that in. Explain it to me. Super simple.
I'll leave it. So he was talking about timing the last event. So you would
timed event,
the finals of the guys that made the finals. So for instance, if it was based off of 2024, it would be whoever did the best on the yoke, and that would be the lineup in the finals for the guys that made the finals. They go off the yoke times, and the yoke times would be how you.
So this is that's what I was thinking. This is not a solution to how to get people to the final better. This is once they go to the final, how to start the final. In other words, right? In other words, if the last event was super yoke and the best super yoker, whoever he was, he would go out last in the final, start of the final. Is that what that comment was? But just you know,
yes,
the reason what we do. Do you want to know what we do?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
It's unofficial. I'll tell you what we do. It's not just random. Absolutely not. Those who came second go first, and the people who are highest seeded go last. In other words, if an new guy from X country scrapes through in second in one of the heats, chances are he'll go out in the first pair, yeah, or maybe second pair, or maybe the first half of the third pair. And if it was, let's say, Tom Stoltman, returning champion, wins, guess what? He goes in the last pair, yeah. So that's how it works. But were Tom Stoltman not to win the heat, it would change. You'd probably go out in the third pair. So that's how it works. So it's not a set thing, but it is.
Well, I think this is more because there's improvement.
It is. I mean, if you rank it off of one event in the heats, that to me seems a little, what's the word? Kind of lucky draw, as it were. What happens if, let's say Mitchell and Tom happen to not do well in that event, but won their heats, and they come out first? Seems a bit weird, doesn't it? So, but thank you. I appreciate the thought, and it's in my head. So thank you.
All right. So the next one, instead of a stone off, we can have a power stairs off, or a farm walk off, or a natural stone carry and load off with increments.
Let me just look at that one again.
They were saying maybe potentially. So different. So either having a power stair off, a farmer walk off, or
a power stair off. Is it a power stair off? Is that like a Mike Tyson thing? Is it? Sorry.
And then or natural stone carry and load off. So just different ways, different events to potentially kind of change things up. So we'll move on to the next one.
Carry.
I have one guy saying, "Get rid of the stone off."
Sorry, just please carry on.
Do you want me to go back?
No, not at all. Please carry on. Please carry on. But I do like a farmer's walk off, by the way. I think that's a winner. That's a very interesting one.
So
anyway, please.
All right. So Michael said, "Get rid of the stone off. Run it like OSG does. Top 10 make it." But I think that the tough one with that is that, of course, the heats are so iconic. You could, it's part of the kind of like the world's strongest man kind of history and those kind of schemes. And then I think it'll be really hard to sell it as a TV show, pretty much because you only have two episodes rather than having 6 episodes.
There goes. Yeah, 66% of the television budget. So, which is the biggest contributor. So that's. But I mean, these guys don't necessarily know that, and thank you. I do think there's some. It's interesting that do people like the fact that we do all the same events in the heats now? I mean, it puts myself, Darren, and some others under great pressure to get the seeding right. Unbelievable pressure to get the seeding right. To make sure that at least 2 from each group actually are in the top 10 when all events are conglomerated. You know what I mean? At the end, which is just very. Or people start, casting, different conspiracy thoughts. It's amazing. Anyway, please carry on.
Next one. Ooh, there we go. This was an awesome podcast as always. I like Nick's idea of multiple events to decide on a second and third. Like the finger fingers in there. So he's agreeing to have I was saying almost having like 3 different events where you're racing through in the winter. Of course, as it goes on to the finals, but he's also a fan of the murder ball. So maybe having a 1v1 type of situation to finish it. I think that would be a little tough, but you ever thought about
we're talking about
some capacity?
We're talking about 1995 Bahamas, right? The big beach ball thing. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
That sucked. It was so bad. It was kind of dumb, but it was mad. That was definitely old school WSM. Imagine if I pulled that out now, people go mad. I like his style, or her style, but yeah, I don't think that's a winner really. someone trips in the sand and then the ball rolls over them. It's just a bit kind of goofy and humiliating.
I have an idea.
Go on.
You could try out, if you wanted to test it out in a market, you could always try it out at OSG. Maybe the 11th and 12th place guy, if they wanted a chance of the finals, they duke it out on a murder ball. So giving them the opportunity to make the finals, and you would have like top 11 go into the finals.
Probably it's kind of an ugly number to start a final with, isn't it? We almost need 10th and 11th to fight it out somehow.
All right, that's
yeah.
So 10, 11. Yeah, you haven't fight them out, so you could see if that's, or if you were trying to just try to get a sample of what it would look like for potential bigger shows, you could always run it at OSG to give that 11th guy an opportunity. Because I've placed 11th before at contests, and that's probably the worst place to place if there's a final top 10 final.
It would be a good place to try things out, that's for sure. But having said that, there is a different length of time. I mean, let's say nowadays it's got ever shorter, but this year's Worlds was a Thursday afternoon when the stone off happened, and the next event was Saturday morning. So if you just popped up 5 stones and were a good stone lifter, it wasn't a big deal, and you had a full, however long, 36 hours, 40 hours until you competed again. OSG would be right there, right then. Boom, on with the next one. I think it might be a bit much, but yeah, might not give us a true test.
We'll chew on it. So let's see. So instead of the stone off, use the same format, but alternate the event. So 1 year it's stones, the other year is farmers, the other year is log for reps, and whatever. So he wants to alternate the events every year, so it's a different event for the second and third place off.
Yeah, I mean, just suddenly jumped in my head, actually, having watched the Olympics. Did you watch the Olympics at all?
I watch a little bit. I tuned into some of the reruns. But what are you thinking, Colin?
This is difficult. I'd have to discuss this with the TV producers who might have a totally different thought on this. Now we do all the same events. What if you actually did create a league of 30 as a bit like, okay, so you're in the quarterfinals. For some reason, the quarterfinals of the 100 meters always has about 6 races. It's not 4. And to get into the semis, you will have the winner of each of the 6 races plus the fastest 2 more. So is there merit potentially? What it doesn't do, though, is it doesn't give you a crunching finish to the show, each one of the 5 episodes. Maybe it does, because you've got a winner, and then the final event could be second and third battling out to become second, and then you take the first 4 events and add them all up in terms of the second place finishers. Hang on a second here. That doesn't work. We're trying to decide within the group. I think that's dumb. But no, sorry. You could be second and third, is my point. You could be second and third, but why would you have a second, third playoff at the end of the heat? You wouldn't. So it's stupid. So you'd have to do finish it after 5 events or something, and then maybe second, third, and fourth from a heat could make it through, and a second place from another heat wouldn't make it through. Do you get where I'm coming from?
That was. I think actually that's one of the suggestions. We'll have to go through it as the next one. I like the idea of 12 athletes in the final. Top of your group automatically placed, then the top 7 based off results through the competition get through. Stones will still be the last event, but a stone run. That way, athletes keep fighting to get the best result, so that potentially they could go have a table of who is in and who is out throughout the World's Strongest Man qualifying heats. Pleasure to meet you at ESM. Glad that you got a call up. Thank you, Paris. Pleasure to meet you too.
Yes.
So similar. So he's saying automatically the winner gets through, and then it's a battle for the next 7. So the next 7, in terms of cumulative points, would make the finals. So there wouldn't be a stone off.
Is he suggesting that the stones being the last event is a stone run?
It would just be a regular, stone series.
So would it be the Stone series he would compare, or
So
all
he's
all
not.
events?
So he's suggesting no stone off and just
Mhm.
cumulative points, but the
I get
winner
it.
of each group make it to the finals. So the next 7, so the top 7 guys outside the guys that made the finals would make it to the finals.
Yeah. So he's basically along the lines of the thought I was just having there. Problem is, you know what would worry me, and would
What's
be
that?
the lack of drama, to get very Scottish, drama. At the moment, you get a cliffhanger before the final commercial break in who wins, and then a cliffhanger of cliffhangers in the showdown, gladiatorial style, or as close as we can be in strongman, in a face-off to see who also makes it. And that is Jeopardy is a wonderful thing to keep people interested. And that's what we want. It's not just about numbers, but it could work.
Well, Paris, thank you for your submission. So the next one, before fixing the stone off, this guy is all about getting a pay-per-view. Let's get a pay-per-view live stream going. Charge big money for that so it can be justified. I enjoyed the spreadsheets, but I much rather prefer to see what's going on live. Even if the camera does get a bit wonky, it does not need to be perfect like the television show. Do you ever see World Strongest Man being live streamed or in some capacity? Has there been discussions?
It will happen within probably 3 years. I reckon 3 or 4 years. I'd say, yeah, probably not in the next couple of years, but maybe. It depends, because there's already set TV deals, and it's basically you have to sort of figure those ones out. They're not my deals. Remember, World's Strongest Man is not owned by me or Darren. It is owned by Endeavor, and it's a like, and who also own UFC, and they do the deals, and it has to make sense. It costs a hell of a lot of money to put it on, a hell of a lot of money. So it, they have to be successful. Problem with pay-per-view is it brings in risk. It also reduces potentially the payback from a sole and exclusive broadcast on television, whenever that is in the future, as it were. So, but we all know that wouldn't actually bother it at all. And I'm sure people less and less care. It starts getting sold to Netflix as a finished product. You could imagine it could be live streamed elsewhere. It'll happen. 100%.
All right, but that sounds like there's contracts that get in the way of potentially getting the live stream, which makes a lot of sense. But we'll move on. A mad decathlon at the end, timed, that asks questions across the board as in all-around strength. Second gets a 5-second head start. So having a decathlon, letting the guy 5-second head start on the decathlon, and then the winner from second to third, or maybe second, third, fourth, gets to move on.
Are we talking like a literal 10 events? Surely not. A mad decathlon. I mean, I guess he means like medley.
I would
probably
potentially. So I would think that in a reasonable, and you can tell me what you think otherwise. Probably 3 or 4 events, you probably could do a decathlon at the end of 6 events.
Hit me with 3 events that 2 guys could do. Hit me. Just
I think you could do. I was thinking about this before the show. You could potentially, when I was pulling all these clips, I think you could do like a natural stone to shoulder, Fingal's finger, and then a power stairs. So that's kind of
in a row. Same time, one person goes and he does all 3. Or not? Are you frozen?
a stone to shoulder into a.
Big man, are you can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I have you calling. Yeah, we glitched a little bit.
We did glitch. Yeah, you froze, looking stoic. Sorry about that. Let's take it back to my question to you was, will you do those 3 events in a row? Like blow the whistle.
Yes.
At the X goes out and does a natural stone to shoulder, I think you said, Fingal's finger and power stair.
Power stair.
Why is it's glitching again? What's going on here? What's going on?
You're coming through on my end. I think
Really
the internet looks a little low, but yeah, I think we'll keep rolling because I think if you're coming through on my end, it's getting recorded. So what this, of course, what the last comment was saying, Carl was saying, was that going into this decathlon, whatever 3 events, the person in second would have a 5-second head start. So if they got that advantage, they would move on.
I asked this. Why 5 seconds? Why 1 second?
Maybe,
why 10 seconds? It's an arbitrary thing. It's free football, isn't it?
So I think it was just had to determine what would be the proper, but some sort of head start with a few seconds, maybe similar to how you guys did it for the Strongest Nation when you had USA versus Britain. If throughout the contest they go out to get that advantage for the end of the contest, so you could potentially figure out if second place is over third place by 6 points, then they get a 6-second head start or a 5-second head start if they're over 5 points.
I'm going to tell you a quick story. You know who Radzi is, of course.
Absolutely.
Here's a fun fact about Radzi. Radzi holds the title for making the second round or the semifinals or whatever it is, or quarterfinals, whatever you go through to, on gladiators, American gladiators, but it's called gladiators in Britain. And his claim to fame is he had the greatest points deficit of any athlete ever in any series anywhere in the world, and he overcame it. He absolutely messed every single event up. It was shocking. Everything went wrong on the day. And he had something ridiculous. He had about 20 points. The other guy had about 100 points. It was embarrassing for him. And he had in the end, it was like half a second a point. In the end, there's something huge, like, I don't know, whatever it was, 18 seconds to catch up or something. I'm just making numbers up. They don't add up. And it was an impossible thing. And it was, do you know the end of Gladiators, American Gladiators? You had the Travelator, right? Have you seen it before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
it's been a while. I didn't catch the.
I don't know. You might do a Ninja Warrior thing. You might swim in a pool quickly. You have to climb a climbing net and stuff like that, right? So a mad decathlon of physical events. And guess what? Radzi guessed right. Radzi guessed that he was so far behind, the referees wouldn't pull him up on anything. Not that I'm saying this will be a referee problem, but actually the TV show was already like, come back after the break where this chump Radzi is so far behind, this guy's going to win. But he did. Radzi came back from this ridiculous start deficit. There's many aspects to that story, which I'll leave for him to tell, which is very funny. How he flyly basically played the game and managed to pull off some, not quite cheats, but and catch up. Because they wanted him to, or it wasn't a show. But there you go. It's interesting. That's just that's sort of a parallel of what this would be, right? This would be, and the problem is, it almost be weird to film it. Power stairs into that. I think it could look like a right pile of shit. You know what I mean? I could see, for example, let's say you did natural stone to shoulder or natural stone to high platform or something weird, right? And then you did a picked up farmer's walk, ran it back to the same spot, and then picked up some other object, 2 other objects, and loaded them. So it was a kind of or in between 3 objects, you have 2 farmer's walk runs or something weird. So it's sort of a medley, but it looks like an event that holds together because it has to look. It can't look like a, hey, hang on. Let's just film this madness. You know what I mean? It has to feel like it's cohesive and what is it testing, etc., etc. So those are all my thoughts. I don't know quite what that means.
Sure.
I do like the idea of multiple things. I think one event is too. And Stones is good, because it really is all body, but it does give the stone lifters an advantage.
It does. So I think that's the one thing with people saying the decathlon. So it's 3 different events. So if you have one, so you have to be more well-rounded rather than just focusing on stone. So I could see that argument. But let's move on
for
to
people to think about it. For people to think about it, imagine it's all got to be shot in a small. Imagine each person has to do all the action within, I don't know, 10 yards by 8 yards or something. That with that thought in mind, you could create a cauldron of interesting fun. Then we can work on that one. Okay, cool.
All right, we'll work on it. But a lot of good ideas, and I imagine there'll probably be some more, probably even after the show. So this one, I would like to see a stone off be natural stones, and then stone to shoulder increase in weight when each guy shoulders a stone. So pretty much same thing as a stone off, but natural stones, but you're shouldering it. So not a bad idea.
I think it's a terrific idea. A stone to shoulder is not as finished a movement necessarily if it's done a bit iffy. So it'd be a bit more refereeing for someone like Magnus. Would be refereeing it probably. One guy does a full clean lift, the other guy does a kind of, oh god, right. I can just imagine refereeing that one. It's not as clean as over the bar, is it? But it's interesting. It's very interesting. I do like the idea. Anyway, yeah, natural stones, interesting. Yeah, I like it.
All right. Next one. All right, so this is one that is suggesting to get rid of the stone off. Just have 6 events in the heats. The top 2 in each heat qualify for the final. The top 2 and 3 place finishers across all heats also advance to the finals. 12-man finals. This way, guys have a reason to try hard in the heats, even if they know they won't win because they might outperform all the other third places finishes in the other heats. So that one's I think that one's a little tough, kind of based off of what we're talking about, because we want to have, again, have the heat system, but also have some drama for people to come back after the commercial break to see how the contest finishes out.
I mean, it's a formula that people might not even realize has been played at them, but it is. Opening event 1, commercial break just before the end of event, come back, see the last pair, go into the next event, commercial break. So and it's a formula and it works well, and that's why it kind of works as it is. You see enough guys and enough things, and a commercial channel can also do commercials. And the last one is a 7-minute, 8-minute, 9-minute part, and that is come back after the break to see the grand finale. And that isn't any TV show. It works. And if you don't, it's come back after the break to see you've already seen it. Go away. Or and the problem, but what he said there wasn't anything drastically wrong about it at all. But I think he said all first and seconds go through though, didn't he? Is that right? So that would be kind of like what it was back in the day. And you could often have first and second already qualifying after 4 events of 6 events. And that was the difficulty. When you don't have that many people in a group of heats, it's you can have a massive difference between the number 1 in the world and the number 30 is a big old difference, a big difference. And those fights around second and third can be juicy, but sometimes they can't. Sometimes the injuries, or you've just underestimated somebody or overestimated somebody. Anyway. The problem is too many old TV shows were dead. They were just dead in the final. It was, I didn't even want to commentate them. They were so boring. It was like, this is already done. We already said this. Why don't we just cut it? But you can't. So that's the problem, is keeping it going to the last second. Anyway.
All right. Well, I think we're going to find a solution. So the 14 is another scrap of heats. All 30 compete, 12 events. After 4 events on day 1, the top 20 move on. After 4 events are done, the top 10 move on. So I think that would be cool maybe for another contest, but it doesn't really help us where.
It's interesting. It's 4 events. It's like almost like you could almost, I do think you could creating a semi-final scenario is an interesting one where you do have more people. So 30 becomes 15 becomes 20. 7 or 28 becomes 14 becomes 7 rather. That works a bit better. Yeah, what's an even better number? Help me out here. Anyway,
I think you go 30, 22.
maybe 24 becomes 12 becomes 6. That sounds better, but then we're starting to get less guys. But anyway, but you know that would
So this was so we have our last two ones, and this is my favorite out of all of them. If there's absolutely has to be a mono event at the end for second and third place, then I think it should fall on the second place of the group to choose the final event. That way, incentivize second place more than a single stone handicap that gives a stronger bias to the second place to win. Considering logistics probably would have to narrow down to a handful of events like a deadlift for reps, log press for reps, farmers for distance. Third place would absolutely have a smaller chance, but considering they shouldn't even be going through the finals anyways, it seems like much more of a fair system than just having Atlas Stone specialists, RIP, Bobby Thompson, Jaco Schoonwinkel, etc. So they're saying
leave this up for a second. Why third place would obviously have a smaller chance, but considering they shouldn't even be going through anyways, it seems like a much more fair system. So what the assumption is there is that after 5 events, there's a large gap between second and third. Now, often it can be, but there also often isn't. I mean, you might have a second equal situation. In fact, you might even have first equal. 3 men, first equal. Where does that leave you? It's an interesting one, isn't it? It is more than, you can have 3 men tight. I mean, there's lots of things, lots of scenarios you could have. So there's no reason why we must assume third doesn't have the right to go through after 5 events. Is it? Are you saying? Yeah.
So
we have to
pretty much
the problem. You have to think of all scenarios and most likely situations, and therefore the most likely situation, if we keep the second and third mano a mano thing as per what you said at the start, is that second and third will still be reasonably close, and you must really, in my opinion, I think everyone sort of suggests it as well in these things, you should have some sort of handicap for being the man in third. The best handicap would be if you were the man in third and it was related to your points difference to second. At the moment, the stone off is you got to lift the stone first. And that's the same whether you're 6 points behind, 1 point behind, or you were equal, but you were slower on the previous event. Therefore, you're forced into third, which is what would happen.
So it's interesting because I just think that the second place, what do you think about the second place dictating what the event is for the mano y mano? Do you think that's a good idea?
I mean, obviously it would just play right into their hands. But I mean, obviously, I'm guessing that Alex, is that Alex? Feels strongly that somehow
Alex Kelly,
the person in second, almost always is way ahead, as it were, or more deserving in that situation after 5 events. And I guess we just have to look at the data. But I think what other people are saying also is that actually there should be more events. I mean, the gap isn't yet big enough, or the gap isn't yet, they haven't been tested enough. So there's a million ways to look at these things. And we've got an hour of TV, and we want to, we've got ideally 6 guys. How do we put them through the rinser so that we get the best guy, and we get drama? So I think by giving somebody, the second place guy, his choice, I mean, you were already in a situation in the stone offs where almost always the guy in second wins, unless he really does a bit of a shabby error, or he's really up against some killer like Tom. But it's a big advantage when the stones are getting heavy like that quickly. So I think it would just. I mean, what event would you pick? You're going to pick Axel or something, aren't you? Or
I would pick any overhead. Any overhead, that was an option.
Any overhead, and therefore you're looking at your opponent, and you've won. You've won. I mean, what's your interview beforehand going to be? Well, the last OSG you won at body weight, right? Who was second?
Yes. Who came in second? Chad Currian.
If you chose
Chad, Chad, he's done a couple OSGs. What would I have chose?
If you had to compete against him,
I ended up beating Chad out of. I ended up beating him 5 out of 6 events, so I would choose anything but sandbag throws.
Okay, very good. But you're assuming we'd have to go back over an old event. I'm just saying. I think what Alex is suggesting is that they can pick any event. There's so many other difficulties with that as well, which is
no. I would maybe choose like maybe they have 3 options, maybe. But yeah, that's a lot of equipment.
Okay. So now he could choose to go head to head in an axle for reps, or he could go head to head in a farmer's walk, or head to head in a stone off, and it's your choice. I see.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. But would you then make sure that they are even? So maybe you do a stone run rather than a start at stone off. That would be because you'd have too much of an advantage if you I want to do a stone off and you had the 1 stone thing. So you'd have to do a stone run. That's an interesting one. This is working. I can see that being. So let's say you had 2 or 3 options. And you have farmers make it all in the same area so it could use the same setup, because you have to, the crowd, everything, the lanes. So you'd maybe farmers walk, stone runs, and what else we can do, Nick? What's the other option? Give me another option.
You can go back. You can still keep the stones in there in case someone wants to do. I want to bring back field figures. That's an exciting one. But this is the last suggestion, and this is do you know my buddy James Jeffers?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know that name?
He was OSG.
Oh, he's very good.
He was OSG, came 6th, didn't he?
Either 5th or 6th, if I remember right. But he's probably going to be the next Canadian behind all these great Canadians that are out there. But he goes in the stone off. But for every point second is ahead of 3rd, that's 1 extra rep the guy in 3rd has to do. So, for instance, if the guy has a 5-point advantage, you had to do 5 reps, then the stone off would start. So he's implying.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. So James feels strongly that the guy in 2nd isn't. In other words, the handicapping isn't. It's not necessarily the guy in 2nd, but 2nd to 3rd, the gap should be related to what the points were beforehand, and that I agree with, because it's right now. That's the one ugly side of it, is that someone like a total ham and egger, who's had a right shocking competition, maybe he's sitting in 5th, 2 guys get injured in front of him, and now he's in 3rd. He does not deserve to be in that stone off. And suddenly, I mean, that's the nightmare scenario. And suddenly he's the greatest. That's the one thing he can do is stones, and he makes the final. I mean, yeah, and all because he only had to do 1 more stone, But if it was the points thing, the problem is, right, actually, that would be an amazing story if he did. That did happen. It's kind of interesting, but I know it's not necessarily the correct story. But the problem is, right now, almost every 2nd place wins anyway. Everyone must see that. If you're watching a stone off, and the guy on the left is the guy receiving the stone from the guy on the right who's in 3rd, it's the guy on the left who's probably going to win. Why? It just is happening. We've already found out that after 5 events, he's a slightly better strongman. And B, he has to do 1 less lift. So it just invariably happens. So if you extrapolate it out, let's say he's a long way behind. Right, so the guy who goes first on the right now of your picture now has to do it 8 times before the other guy joins in. It's like, this is crazy. It's like saying, okay, you have to be, instead of I don't know, you have to join 100 meters, but you have to be for each point. For each Lynn Morehouse, sorry, Lynn's calling. For each point, you have to go back 10 meters or something. It's an impossible gap to close. That's the problem there. But I like the grading it. So James and some others are on to something there. It's so difficult to figure it out exactly. But maybe you would forgive the gap being different sizes were 2nd place. That goes back to the man before, who I initially didn't agree with the beginning bit, because it was going back in history for me. But his 2nd bit about that choosing the event is an interesting one, and you of course like that one as well. And I think there is some scope, as long as it was.
I thought it wasn't a bad idea, especially if you narrow down the options.
Yeah. And that would then be, no matter what size the gap is, a hell of an advantage. But then you can run them both even, so they both get an even shot at it. That's interesting. It's interesting, really interesting.
So overall, between myself and the viewers in the questions, did we help you do we help you in terms of determine how do you improve the stone off in the end of World's Strongest Man, or do we just confuse you more?
No, massively so. Thank you ever so much. I can't thank you enough to everybody who, and this should be an ongoing debate, and people should be heard, and they should voice their opinion, and we should be held to account as to and explain our, like your mathematics working out. So hopefully they're seeing a bit of what I think anyway, not everything by any stretch of the imagination. Not everything comes from me at World's Strongest Man. This ultimately is actually cooking it up and then selling it into the TV company themselves as a better way of doing it, because they've almost lasted 50 years. And probably the biggest ever change was one that came in 2004. Boy, did that suck. I was the MC in 2004 at World's Strongest Man. I still don't understand how it worked. It was awful. It was awful.
When Vasil won, is that because it was only the winners made the finals, correct? Of the heat.
Yes. That's mate. I'm just on a podcast. I'm on a podcast here with Nicholas Camby. I'll call you back in a minute, mate. Call you back. Promise. Thanks.
See you later, Daz.
So we got Lynn Morehouse is hunting me down, and now Daz too. So this must be something going on. I guess strongman. We've got lots of shows to do. Yeah, please carry on, then, Nick. Sorry.
Sure. Well, that's all the I would say the terms question. But then looking at some of the predictions, so I wanted to even bring up the log championships that are coming up soon.
Now we're talking.
So the log championships. Let me. I got a nice little graphic with Mr. Patty Haynes. So you got Hooper, Novikov, Singleton, Bilton, Evans, Richardson, Foytu, Schrock-Stellis, Bordeaux, Ferris, Goldtree, and Haynes, and the Iron Bibby's doing log only. I think it's pretty interesting because there'll probably going to be potentially 3 or 4 or 5 guys over 210 kilos that have the potential to go over 210 kilos.
Who do you see? Who does 210?
So, all right, Iron Bibi.
Of course.
Hooper just barely missed it last year. You have we have actually. Oh, I screwed up for some reason. I thought Stoltman was coming. But I would think that potentially Foytu. Foytu might have a great chance. He has been having some great training. I think he strict pressed 210 kilos recently. Goldtree has a great log press. And then potentially if Luke Richardson is back in shape, I think you have him there. So Singleton is always
too early for Luke.
Too early
for Luke. But Iron Bibby did 4 reps. 4 reps once he cleaned it to the shoulder at 210 very recently. So Bibby certainly will do it. That's for sure. I think Bibby, he said to me he's going to do a world record again. So he's
and then Boudreaux recently hit 451 or 205 kilos at North America's Strongest Man. So he's definitely a threat for potentially 210. So that's potentially 4 guys. I don't think we've seen 3 individuals over 210 since maybe that 2012 World's Strongest Man, where you had Roger Koski, you had the late Mike Jenkins, and then you had Zydrunas, who ended up hitting 220.
What a show that was! Wow, yeah, it was cruising big boys there. Bless him, Mike.
But if you guys are available in Birmingham, September 7th. Just buy your ticket.
Yeah, September 7th. Come along. Tickets still available if you want to come along. It's right in the center of the country. Good place to go to. And it's going to be massive. And Bibby has as he's phoning me tonight. We're trying to get it onto Burkina Faso television. The president, everybody's just mad for Bibby mania is sweeping West Africa. So yeah, and he looks and feels very strong. So get ready for some history. Especially after his actual record was nicked by Hooper. I think he wants to stamp his authority in the shoulder department on Mitchell. I don't think Mitchell would claim he's got much of a shot of the log, but you never know with Mitchell. Bloody never know. never know.
I think
Never know.
I think Mitch would struggle if he does the same technique they did on the axle to the log, just because he does the bent press split jerk, where you have more time to get under the bar on an axle, but on the log is shorter range of motion. You're not gonna have enough time. So I think he's probably gonna go for a straight bent press, if that's my guess, if it's for the log. So I think it would be very tough for him to split. So get the extra 5 or 10 kilos he does out of his split jerk. But I'm glad to, of course, it was a great event. So outside the max log, you have the sandbag throw, the axle deadlift, arm over arm truck pull, and power stairs. I think the arm over arm is a good addition. So I'm glad to see that, how that going. But what other predictions do you have for Vegas? Are you pretty excited?
I mean, massively excited. Yeah. Speaking to Hicksy yesterday, he's going into the gym today or tomorrow or something. But he's going in to pull 475. 450 for a double was easy. So he said, and he showed me the video. It was blood easy. So he thinks 475 will be very easy. Bibby told me 2 days ago on the phone that he's pulling 450 no problem now. And if he wants to do 1,000 pounds, then go jump to 505. This is Bibby. And when Iron Bibby says something, he does have the X factor. There's only a few guys have it, but he can shake the room. That man, he's a unique, very unique character.
I believe it. So looking at the Vegas show, so Lucy Underdale, Graham Hicks, Ivan Makarov. So this is Ivan Makarov's 4th time in a row going for 505 kilos. Is that right?
And he's done the biggest pull in training beforehand that he's ever done. I think he did 505 from I think it was 2-inch blocks, or 510 even. I can't remember what it was recently, very recently. So he's pulled the weight, but it was a 2-inch block.
All right, interesting. And then you have Iron BB. Is Iron BB going to do the full show in Vegas?
Yes. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. And then of course you have Mr. Crowder, Novikov. You got the T-Rex, Evan Singleton, Matt Ragg, Luke Stoltman. Luke Stoltman, Tom Stoltman, Bobby Thompson, Eddie Williams. You got Hooper. You have Austin Andrade, Trey Mitchell, and then Ronald Heinla. So
I think in people
really
like
great lineup. But what
Matt Ragg, Singleton, and also Tom Stoltman and Mitchell Hooper. I mean, these guys all showed what they could do at the Schmo, and that was without a suit. And a lot of these guys get a lot out of a suit. Probably Singleton is going to be seething to show what he can do in the deadlift. He was. I think there was some. Not, I'd never say wrong decisions, but they were tough decisions. They were tough refereeing, right? From what I understand, as Singleton was on the tougher end of it. So I think it was he'll want to come out and pull something big. I'm not sure Singleton's got 505 in him yet. You don't never say never with him either. He might be a 475 man, but Mitchell Hooper, just wait. Mitchell Hooper is just, when it comes to competition, he can just eke out of his body. He's like Superman. Honestly, I don't know what planet did he come from. I think we could see something shocking from him.
He's a madman.
A madman, but he's just is he a man? I don't know. And I don't mean that in is he a woman way. I mean, is he from outer space?
He does have a pretty big head. He could be Martian. So I guess the only time will tell. So it's interesting because at this deadlift championship, I had Graham Hicks on after last year's championship on the podcast. And at that time, he's saying, I'm skipping British Strongest Man. I'm skipping World Strongest Man. I'm just going to focus on the record. And I don't think there's ever been a high-level competitor like Graham Hicks that has passed on competitions just to focus on this one record. So it must be pretty special to him. So it will be pretty interesting. But what were you going to say, Colin?
Eddie Hall? Eddie Hall did. Eddie Hall.
But Eddie Hall, but did Eddie Hall skip competitions? Did Eddie Hall skip competitions in order to break the record?
I don't think Eddie competed for about 9 months.
Oh, did he? All right. I didn't realize it was that long.
I could be a liar. He might have done Britain's Strongest Man on the way in, in the January, and then I don't think he did anything until July 7th when he pulled the deadlift, and then because Worlds end was September. Yeah, I could be wrong. But that is what it needs: maximum commitment. You know that. You know.
Mm-hmm. So let's just say he's the second guy since. So that's going to be it's at least a high level world's strongest man athlete. Like we haven't seen. We know Ivan Makarov. That's what he really focuses on. But has he been at those high level shows yet? Not, of course, not quite. But someone that's as well rounded as Graham, we haven't seen quite take the leap since Eddie. So over 8 years.
I mean, Makarov, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's pretty well.
I hope Makarov, I hope he does do it, bloody hell. He's an awful nice fella, but and he tries so hard towards the deadlift. And he gets in such good shape, and he's just built to deadlift. I mean, he could tie his shoelaces while still standing up. You've never seen a thicker ass and back. The guy's just extraordinary shape. And then he just, somehow it doesn't quite happen. But I think this year last year was a bit of injury and stuff, and he had bad travel. Touch wood, he's in shape. If we just catch a wind, we could have Mitch. I could see Mitch, him, and Browno, and Hicksy all going 505, and maybe one or two of them pulling it, and that'd be quite something. What the hell do we do if two pull it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think this is Ivan Makarov's because he tried to go for the record like 2 times outside of Giants Live. So is this his 6th time going for the record?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Actually, that's got a good thought. It's not like a great boasting title. 6 times world
6
record.
times is a charm.
Yeah.
That's funny. We have another kind of chat with. We have a friend that used to miss 400 before he hit 400, so that's very funny. But just moving on to the question. So, or before we move on, of course, if you haven't bought your tickets, if you want to see me in the stands and watch Colin commentate and watch the Great Show of Vegas, Orleans Casino, be there on September 28th.
Just September 28th.
Oh no,
I'm reading my calendar in the dog. 27th,
28th.
28th.
3 weeks after Birmingham.
3 weeks after Birmingham. That's the one. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Just you know.
So Colin, as a
in Britain we call it Birmingham. Birmingham is how you would say it. You don't say yeah. For some reason we don't do the ham thing. It's just Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Kind of, yeah.
Birmingham.
Or Birmingham. You're from there. But yeah. Birmingham always sounds quite amusing to us Brits, but just so you can sound like a Brit.
Sure. Colin, so moving on, of course, we have a few more questions. I don't want to take too much of your time over an hour, but talking about the Olympics, it's always a hot spot every time the Olympics rolls around because everybody thinks that strongman should be in the Olympics. But as a former Olympian yourself, you think strongman deserves to be in the Olympics, or you think that's kind of a far-fetched idea?
I wouldn't use the word deserves. It deserves a lot of things, strongman, and it's a magnificent. It was kind of my number one love. But having competed in the Olympics in a federation and a coded sport, as it were, I was a bobslayer, not in the real Olympics, as my son would say when he was about 4 years old, the winter one. But yeah, I don't. I mean, yeah, why would it be in the Olympics? There's not even currently a federation sort of ruling over the whole of strongman. Be careful what you wish for. Also, there's a lot of other things that have to happen before all the athletes can compete at the Olympics. So, yeah, and that's something that would be rather interesting to see. It's possible a couple of the weights could go down. That's possible, but I'm not saying any more than that. I mean, it would be very, world's strongest man. We do certain testing to make sure athletes are safe, but the Olympic standard of drug testing is a whole different kettle of fish, and that would be
absolutely. So it would just roll up. Well, we ask athletes to become the biggest and strongest, almost freakish athletes, and hopefully they of course supplement their bodies in the most most in healthy or in proper manners. But we ask one thing of others, and then of course the Olympic with the what's the government body? I forget the governing body, but they're of course very strict. So you would have a bunch of natural
the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and they have a drug arm called WADA, and then there's every sport has its own federation. So, bobsleigh was whatever it was, FIBT, Fédération Internationale. For some reason, the French started all world federations. Britain often created the sport, just a lot of sports they did. Everything from football to golf, and then the French federated, and it all gets run out of Geneva often for some reason. But so it's I think strongman's in a good place, and I think things like OSG, I think the SMO is a good one, a good addition. I think WSM is getting better and better every year. I think I think all the giants' lives are just so great, it's unbelievable. And everyone should come to Birmingham and to Las Vegas. But yeah, I think there's lots of good on the horizon for strongman. And yeah, I think there could always be more, and there could always be more body weight, this and that. But we're getting there. And women stuff. Don't you think so? A lot more opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There's most opportunity in strongman, not just the open weights, but for all the weight class. Probably more opportunities in the weight class than ever before. So great time to be a strongman. Great time to start strongman. But in terms of some just general questions, Jeff Lee wants to ask you: are you ready for a Taiwanese athlete to be at World's Strongest Man one day?
Love it. Yeah, I love it. Is he Taiwanese?
So Jeff Lee, yeah, he's Taiwanese.
Is he the OSG?
He was at OSG. He took third at 105, but he's So he's making the move to heavyweight. So he's taking the year off to put on weight, and he wants to do OSG 2025. So that's his goal, is to
get in.
Well, OSG. Yes, he does get it.
Speak to my guy here.
For instance,
he's done it. He can do it. You can do it, can't you? It's possible. I think that'd be amazing. I'd love to have an Asia's Strongest Man section to OSG, and there's lots to do there. God, what a lot to do. But yeah, please be
absolutely. So
big and strong, and a shining light for Asian strength.
So he's right now currently trying to put on some weight. Now, do you ever look at like any local shows in the US or local shows around Europe in terms of just keeping tabs or just keep your eyes open for like the next batch of athletes? Do you ever just look at results or do a little research here and there?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. God, for years, this is how we found new faces and new blood. It's there's a vast array of contests out there that don't ever get seen by most people. And there's lots of people like Strongman Champions League. It goes all over the world. It's fascinating. There's all kinds of different contests. Lots of stuff goes on in Australia, all over America. There's many. But probably there's less need to look now than ever before, because if you didn't know, folks, I did see a podcast with two Canadian strongman pros recently who were discussing. It's as if they didn't understand that there was official strongman there for them to make World's Strongest Man. It was quite bizarre, actually. When I was watching it, I don't know why I came across it, but guys, anybody can go to World's Strongest Man if you are good enough and you qualify for official strongman games. So it's as simple as that. In the open heavyweight category, that is, if you're looking for the World's Strongest Man. If you want to be World's Strongest Man in your weight category, then that is the place to do it. So there is a route. Nobody can claim they're being shut out now. Sure. Yeah,
absolutely. For next year, is World's Strongest Man potentially in Sacramento, or is the location still to be determined?
I don't think has it been publicly announced? I don't think so. So I think it
hasn't. So
it's very, very likely and very much being discussed there, I believe, but it would probably be wrong of me to say more than that, because I really don't know more than that. And actually, it's not my bag anyway. So we'll find out when we find out.
What do you think about World's Strongest Man in Boston one day? Would you ever entertain? Because there was one. That's one of the questions. Was World's Strongest Man in Boston? So you have like venue like Fenway Park. You can do like the Boston Common. See the Seaport area, very beautiful. Faneuil Hall. So plenty of places in Boston.
That's where the Tea Party was, wasn't it? Is that the Tea Party? Is that where the Tea Party happened?
It was with a Tea Party. So yeah, we could throw you in the water as well when you come and
throw
visit.
us bits in the water. I could put my red coat on and you could lob me in the water. That'd be fun, yeah. So was it Samuel Pepys? Was he one of those guys? Who was trying to remember my Boston history. Anyway, you are a Bostonian, aren't you, through and through?
Sam Adams was one of the guys, and then you have Paul Revere.
Sam Adams, that's the guy. Yes, and he's yes, right, Samuel Adams. Yeah. Of the beer, same guy, right? He started a brewery, right? He was a brewer.
I think they started in his name. I don't think he personally started the brewery.
Are you sure? Because I think he was a brewer. It's a pretty popular. He was a brewer, wasn't he?
Ooh. Now I gotta look.
I think he was a brewer. I think that the Samuel Adams was a master brewer in Boston. Whether he made that very beer, I don't know. Maybe. Come on then.
He did work as a brewer. He worked at he inherited his father's brewery on Boston King Street on the modern day State Street.
And his dad was Sam Adams.
There you go. You know more about Sam Adams than me. And then the last question before we maybe go through some of these some comments that people came in. The president of Strongman Italia wants to grow the sport of strongman and promote the sport of strongman in Italy. And he's curious if you would ever consider an international show or something in Italy.
I think I saw this is the chap or met a few Italian fellas with Lynn last weekend at OSG Europe.
You talked to Paulo and Greco and Emanuele, right?
They were over, were they not?
So there was actually 5 Italians, the most Italians I've seen at an OSG ever, which is great. So it's definitely now they want to come to the international scene. And at the time, for a while, a lot of the Italians kind of stuck to just kind of competing in Italy, but now they're really branching out all the weight classes. So I'm excited to see kind of more representation. But right now, the Italians are just hungry to keep growing the sport. So in case you ever wanted to,
I was super encouraging. I'd love to do a show in Italy. Why not? It's great. Some good.
Yeah, if you did Giants Live Italy after the contest. You would get a 7-course meal, all the antipasto, the pastas, the pizzas, potentially.
Why just 7?
The steak. But 7, 8 or 9, right? So there was one question. Maybe this is a good way to potentially finish out the show. But do you have a favorite, or do you have a top 3 individual World's Strongest Man performances of all time that you would consider?
Top 3 individual World's Strongest Man performances. Of all time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of all time.
Gosh.
All time.
We might have to do another podcast and let me go away and think about that one. That's really I'm gonna have to think, why do I have a party hat in this podcast anyway? Hey, take my party hat up.
That's funny.
As you can see, I'm not concentrating on what I should be thinking about. God, there's so many performances. If I say one, I'm almost gonna damn myself and think how. Are there any moments where I was really, I've been doing this since World's Strongest Man. I was equipment crew guy in '96. Amazing, coming up to my 30th year. I'm lucky. That's great. Come on, I lost. But all of the performances I've seen, bloody hell, you'd have to. Do you know what? I wrote up a list of 100 performances of World's Strongest Man. For a new social media director about 7 or 8 years ago, when he didn't really know about strongman, so I wrote him a list of all the great things to go look it up. But if I pick one, that's a killer. Can I change the topic? And can we do it next time? We just do another one. You'll have me back. I'll give you the top 3 then. But what I will say is this, right? There's recently been a lot of chat about the strongest men in history and the top 10 strongest men of all time. And that's a fascinating topic, and I must sit down and actually write my own thoughts on it. But of all the strongmen, if they were all to compete, Mitch did a fascinating one take on health and fitness's look into it, and I have to say I agreed with almost all of what Mitch said. Maybe not everything. It was painful when he started reading out the numbers. And then the list of guys they actually gave, it was crazy. And you would have like the old Lasher, compared to, Mark Henry didn't snatch body weight at the Olympics, and he was number one on their list. That's and it certainly wasn't 200 and whatever he's doing now, 20 something. It was 185. It was. I'm not quite sure how they came up with that one. That's probably. Also I think Mark Henry's an incredibly strong human being and could have been. Maybe he is the strongest man ever, but I don't think you can put him down as that for what he did. He just simply didn't do. Went to the Olympics and came down the bottom of his group, and he did some impressive American powerlifting records, but then left the sport. And he came back, and the one time he kind of did strongman, he beat. I know because Sven was a pal of mine then. Sven was ill with flu in Japan, flew back, and I had a Sven Carlson training video around then. And he was he'd never touched the axle before. No one had. But Mark had, and he trained on it for months. And that's well documented. Maybe not months, but 1 or 2 or 3.
I think they had I think on that same list, Colin, they had an equipped powerlifter over Zydrunas, which was tough to it was tough to look at.
This is my thought on this is my take. This is my take on powerlifting, right? If you really can, you don't go equipped. You don't need equipment if you really can. You know what I mean? If you really are the man, you just lift. And it's although you get more, and I've squatted in the suit in a competition before. And it's great. It is great. It's just a cheat. It's the first time you do it, you go, "Shit, this is a cheat. This is great." But the numbers that people like Jesus Oliveira are doing are crazy. Anyway, there we go.
He's great. It was nice. I met Jesus at the Arnold, and I called him Jesus by accident. And he was like, he corrected me. No, it was actually Jesus.
Jesus, yeah.
I'm like, Jesus,
man. He's a real dude. I've been trying to fish to get him into the World Deadlift Champs, but he's sadly that's what happens in the world of federated sports. They hold on to you tight. There's no just.
He's chewing on the strongman in the future. I don't think he's ready yet. He's still like 26, so he has plenty of years if he wants to do strongman.
Even that? But I don't think he's even that. I think he's younger. He's like 24.
Oh, well, even better then. He still has plenty. It's plenty of time. He could wait until 30 and actually go strongman. I had a conversation with him at the Arnold about it, actually. I told him that. How much more time do I got with you, Colin?
I've got Lynn and Darren to call back. I better call Darren back pretty soon because it's getting late.
Right. But 5 minutes.
Go for it.
So our buddy James Jeffers chimed into the chat, and he has one question. So I think with the recent individuals at the OSG podium lately, it's been all the podium from OSG has been going to World's Strongest Man. It's not, from my understanding, it's not necessarily guaranteed, but the recent performances at OSG have qualified them into World's Strongest Man. But will this year's OSG guarantee a spot to World's Strongest Man?
It is top 3 has directly qualified them into a Giants Live, and it just so happens that we highly respect the OSG results, and therefore when we come to select people as wildcards for World's Strongest Man, it is very high on our radar, very high. Leave it at that. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
it's exactly what it is, because you can throw yourself against everybody else in the world across a smorgasbord of events that really do test you, and it turns out incredibly strong men. Matt Ragg is the perfect example. Say no more.
All right. And then we'll leave it with evening, guys. Looking forward to the World Open in just a couple of weeks. Thank you, Big Laws. Thank you for tuning in. Our man. See,
Is it Big Laws or Big Liz? Is it Big Laws or Big Liz? That's the question. I bet it's Big Liz.
Laws or Liz?
Liz. We Liz.
Thank you for tuning in. All right, Colin. Let's leave the listeners on one piece of advice that you want to share with them that they can better themselves for. It was Liz, but one piece of advice that you want to leave the listeners.
One piece of advice. I was going to crack a gag about your beard. You've set it up to be quite serious. What would my piece of advice be? Be very careful about setting goals that you can achieve, because it can be heartbreaking when you achieve them and realize that actually life is still the same. You are still just the same wanker you were yesterday. So it's make sure you're a well-rounded human being, family, friends, everything, before you go down the rabbit hole of chasing after one dream, to make sure that you are, whether you don't get there, or even worse, whether you get there, you will be okay on the other side. And there's a lot of world's strongest man winners who are who were a bit on the edge of being totally one-dimensional. So, and it's not always a good thing, and or other great sports people. So that's my thought on the matter. That's what makes Mitchell Hooper even more amazing. Is he's a family dude, and he's a charity stuff, and he's he's not just 24/7 doing what's the guy, Sam Sullivan, that bodybuilder guy, like totally obsessed with everything, and he's living and sleeping it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's my advice. Now I'm 50. I just turned 50. So there you go. I would have been more inspirational and work hard or bullshit like that. But part-time training, part-time results. My advice is just make sure you have a number of long-term goals, a number of them, to enjoy life as well as short.
Awesome.
There you go.
Well, thank you, Colin. And of course, for all the listeners, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're enjoying all the podcasts. And until next time, stay strong. Thank you again, Colin.